Welcome to the Security Brief for Week 48. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and share this news. To our first story, a Kansas City man managed to hack not just computer networks, but also the very concept of professionalism. That's right. Nicholas Michael Closter, 31, turned a life of cybercrime into what we can only describe as the weirdest job interview ever. Closter allegedly hacked into a health club's computer system, sent an email saying, "Hey, I hacked you. Want to hire me to make sure no one else does this?" And then get this, slashed his own gym membership fee to $1. Because if you're going to breach a system, you might as well make leg day cheaper. But wait, there's more. Closter decided to up the ante. He hacked into a non-profit organization, bypassed security using a boot disk, and even installed a VPN. Not to help the organization, mind you, but to show off his skills. Closter didn't stop there. He allegedly dipped into his old bag of tricks, this time using stolen credit card info from a former employer to buy hacking tools. The DOJ says Closter caused more than $5,000 in damages, and if convicted, he's facing 15 years in prison. That's 10 years for recklessness and 5 for a total lack of self-awareness. Fines and restitution are also on the table. Ironically, the same skills that could have made him a cybersecurity hero are about to make him a cautionary tale. So, what do we learn from this? If you're thinking about pitching your cybersecurity services, maybe stick to LinkedIn instead of committing actual felonies. And remember, hacking for a discount on Pilates classes is never worth it. Moving on. Yonder, a company that boasts AI-driven solutions for inventory and transportation management, is now singing the blues after a November 21st cyberattack knocked out its managed services hosting environment. Among the affected are big-name clients like Morrison's, Sainsbury's, and even Starbucks, because nothing says supply chain disruption like manually paying baristas to keep the frappuccinos flowing. Despite these efforts, Yonder hasn't released a timeline for a full recovery. In the meantime, grocery stores have been forced to dust off their Plan B strategies. For Morrison's, that means a slower backup system, and for Sainsbury's, contingency plans are in full swing, likely involving a lot of crossed fingers and Excel spreadsheets. Even Starbucks couldn't escape the chaos. Reports indicate that the coffee giant has resorted to paying staff manually, proving once and for all that ransomware isn't just bad for supply chains, it's bad for caffeine addicts everywhere. What's really interesting here is the radio silence from the usual suspects, ransomware gangs. No one has claimed responsibility yet. Either the hackers are lying low, or they've realized disrupting grocery store chains is a quick way to get everyone mad at you, especially the folks waiting for their morning lattes. The lesson here? Even billion-dollar companies aren't immune to ransomware, and backups might just be the unsung hero of the modern era. For now, the supply chain world waits, and so do the rest of us. Hopefully not too long, because let's face it, no one wants to run out of snacks or coffee. Moving on. Law enforcement agencies across Africa have orchestrated a massive sting operation called Operation Serengeti. It's a global cybercrime smackdown that's nabbed over 1,000 suspects responsible for nearly $193 million in financial losses worldwide. Interpol and Afripol joined forces with cybersecurity heavyweights like Fortinet, Kaspersky, and Group IB to track down cybercriminals running everything from ransomware to Ponzi schemes. The results? Arrests in 19 countries, the dismantling of 134,089 malicious infrastructures, and a collective sigh of relief from victims across the globe. In total, the operation identified 35,224 victims and recovered a cool $44 million. That's a lot of justice, and probably the biggest headache the cybercrime world has faced in years. So what's the lesson here? The Serengeti may be known for its lions, but it turns out the cybercriminals should have been worried about an entirely different kind of predator, law enforcement. Moving on to our next story. Internet security titan Cloudflare recently admitted to losing 55% of all logs sent to customers during a 3.5-hour window on November 14th. That's right, over half the logs generated during that time vanished, thanks to what the company is calling a cascading fail-safe failure. Sounds like the tech equivalent of a domino game gone horribly wrong. Cloudflare's logging service, which handles an eye-popping 50 trillion customer events daily, is a cornerstone for analyzing website traffic, troubleshooting, and defending against threats. But on November 14th, a misconfiguration in the log_WDR system caused the log forwarding service to essentially shrug and say, "No customers here, nothing to see." Instead of routing logs to their rightful destinations, they were discarded into the digital void. Here's where it gets really interesting. Log_WDR is built with a fail-safe meant to prevent data loss by forwarding all logs during a blank configuration. Great idea in theory, but in practice? This triggered a tidal wave of log processing requests, 40 times more than the system was designed to handle. Poor Bufty, the buffering system tasked with holding these logs, buckled under the pressure and promptly called it quits. Within 5 minutes, Bufty completely shut down, leaving Cloudflare scrambling to restart the system and recover what it could. The result? 3.5 hours of missing logs, a lot of frustrated customers, and an internal review that probably included a few facepalms. Cloudflare isn't taking this lightly. In the aftermath, they've rolled out a new misconfiguration detection system to flag these issues before they spiral, adjusted Bufty to better handle spikes in data volume, and committed to testing overload scenarios to ensure this sort of thing doesn't happen again. In other words, they're putting their fail-safes through boot camp. Moving on, T-Mobile has announced that it successfully fended off an intrusion by the Chinese state-sponsored hacker group Salt Typhoon. The attackers breached T-Mobile's routers in a reconnaissance attempt to scope out its network for deeper access, but T-Mobile's cyber defenses stopped them before any sensitive customer data was compromised. Salt Typhoon, also known by aliases like Earth Estries, Ghost Emperor, and Famous Sparrow, has been active since at least 2019, targeting governments and telecoms worldwide. This time, they aimed their sights on T-Mobile, leveraging a wireline provider's compromised network to launch their attack. T-Mobile's chief security officer, Jeff Simon, shared that the company detected unusual activity on its routers, commands typically linked to the early stages of a cyber attack. The suspicious behavior matched known Salt Typhoon tactics, setting off alarms in T-Mobile's cyber defense systems. Key defenses such as proactive monitoring and network segmentation allowed T-Mobile to contain the threat. The hackers were stopped before they could pivot further into the network or access sensitive data like customer call records, voicemails, or text messages. In a statement, Simon emphasized, "Bad actors had no access to sensitive customer data. We quickly severed connectivity to the provider's network, as we believe it was, and may still be, compromised." Salt Typhoon's T-Mobile breach is part of a broader campaign targeting telecom providers worldwide. Just last month, CISA and the FBI confirmed that this group compromised telecom giants like AT&T, Verizon, and Lumen Technologies. These attacks allegedly resulted in stolen government call records, law enforcement request data, and even access to the U.S. government's wiretapping platform. It's not just the U.S. feeling the heat. Canada recently reported scans on government and political networks, and similar hacking campaigns by Volt Typhoon, another Chinese group, have targeted internet service providers in the U.S. and India using zero-day exploits. T-Mobile says it no longer detects any active attackers in its systems, but the battle against state-sponsored hacking is far from over. Cybersecurity experts urge telecoms and governments to remain vigilant, especially as these attacks grow more sophisticated. So what's the lesson here? In a world where even the most fortified networks are under constant siege, proactive defenses and collaboration are key. And to Salt Typhoon, here's a message. This time, the network bit back. Moving on, the popular push-to-talk app Zello is making headlines again, but this time it's for a reason that might have you reaching for your password manager. Zello, known for connecting 140 million users, including first responders, hospitality services, and families, has issued a security notice asking users to reset their passwords if their account was created before November 2, 2024. Over the past 2 weeks, users have reported receiving warnings like this. As a precaution, we are asking that you reset your Zello app password for any account created before November 2, 2024. The notice recommends users also change passwords on other accounts where the same credentials might have been used. Classic advice, but also a gentle reminder that reusing passwords is playing with fire in today's cybersecurity landscape. So, what's the issue? Well, that's the million-dollar question. Zello hasn't confirmed whether this is due to a data breach or a credential stuffing attack, a tactic where hackers use previously leaked credentials to try and access other accounts. However, the timing suggests something happened around November 2nd that set off alarm bells. Despite customer inquiries and media outreach, Zello has remained tight-lipped about the nature of the incident. If this sounds familiar, it's because Zello has been here before. Back in 2020, the company suffered a data breach where email addresses and hashed passwords were stolen, leading to, yes, you guessed it, a round of password resets. Zello's lack of transparency has left users scratching their heads, but it underscores a larger issue. Cybersecurity isn't just about stopping the bad guys. It's about keeping customers informed when things go wrong. Moving on, a major cyber attack has hit the Wirral University Teaching Hospital, WTH, in the UK, forcing the healthcare network to postpone appointments, delay procedures, and revert to manual operations. This disruption has sent shockwaves through the NHS Foundation Trust, leaving patients and staff grappling with a system pushed to its limits. The cyberattack, disclosed earlier this week, targeted WUTH, which operates several key hospitals, including Arrow Park Hospital, Clatterbridge Hospital, and Wirral Women and Children's Hospital. Together, these facilities provide critical services, from emergency care and surgeries to cancer treatments and maternity services. But now, many of these operations are at a standstill. Hospital IT systems have been taken offline to prevent the issue from spreading, forcing staff to switch to manual processes, pen, paper, and plenty of patience. As a WUTH spokesperson explained, "We detected suspicious activity and isolated our systems as a precaution. This resulted in some IT systems being offline. We've reverted to business continuity processes to keep essential services running." As of now, no ransomware group or cybercrime collective has claimed responsibility for the attack. This leaves the nature of the incident, a data theft, ransomware infection, or another cyber threat, unclear. This attack is a stark reminder of the growing threat cybercriminals pose to critical infrastructure, including healthcare. Hospitals are particularly vulnerable as they rely heavily on interconnected systems to provide life-saving care. The NHS, which has faced cyber attacks before, must now grapple with this latest assault on its resilience. For patients, the message is clear: bear with us, but only if it's an emergency. Moving on to our last story, Italian football, where Bologna FC 1909 is dealing with an off-pitch crisis after falling victim to a ransomware attack by the notorious RansomHub group. The hackers not only breached the club's internal systems, but have now leaked sensitive data online, turning a cyber threat into a very real headache for the club, its players, and its fans. Bologna FC confirmed the attack in a public statement, warning the public against downloading or disseminating the stolen data, as doing so constitutes a serious criminal offense. Here's how the statement kicked off. Bologna FC 1909 SPA would like to communicate that a ransomware cyber attack recently targeted its internal security systems. The crime resulted in the theft of company data which may appear online. The culprits? RansomHub, one of the most prolific ransomware groups active today. The gang initially threatened to leak the stolen data if the club didn't pay up. Bologna refused, and true to their word, RansomHub dumped the entire data set on the dark web. Ransomware attacks targeting sports organizations aren't commonplace, but when they do happen, they're explosive. Previous victims include the French basketball team ASVEL, targeted by No Escape ransomware, and the San Francisco 49ers NFL team, hit by Blackbyte ransomware. RansomHub, however, is no stranger to big game hunting. Their tactics include not just stealing and encrypting data, but leveraging legal and reputational pressure to extort victims. Bologna's refusal to negotiate highlights the growing trend of organizations standing firm, even in the face of public data leaks. The club now faces a double challenge: recovering from the breach and mitigating the fallout from leaked data. For players, sponsors, and fans, the leak could mean heightened concerns about privacy and financial risks. For the club, it's a stark reminder of how cybersecurity needs to be as robust as the defense line on the pitch. Ransomware attacks are no longer confined to corporate giants. They're now infiltrating every sector, including sports. With clubs managing vast amounts of money and sensitive information, they've become lucrative targets for cybercriminals. For now, Bologna FC urges the public to steer clear of the leaked data and cooperate in safeguarding privacy. In the meantime, the team will be looking to recover its systems and its reputation. That's it for this week's news. Which story did you find most interesting, or any story that you wish was included? Make sure you comment under. Make sure to subscribe, and I see you soon.